Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Buhai. First, this hour, the International Court of Justice in The Hague has decided to start an official investigation into war crimes and crimes against humanity in eastern Ukraine and in the Russian-occupied Crimea. This was announced by Vice Prime Minister, Minister for Reintegration of the Temporarily Occupied Territories of Ukraine, Oleksiy Reznikov. The preliminary study allowed the Hague lawyers to reveal the facts: premeditated killings, torture, sexual violence, deportation, forced conscription of local residents into the army of the occupying country, and other crimes provided for by the Rome Statute. After the completion of the investigation, the court will be able to call Russia an aggressor country, and Ukraine will obtain a right to demand compensations. However, this will be possible if the Rome Statute is ratified. In the meantime, official Kyiv has only signed this document.
This means that there is a subject, one who is responsible, including legal responsibility in international institutions, when people start applying for compensation. This is an aggressor country, it's Russia, but until Ukraine ratifies the Rome Statute, we cannot just apply.
As of today, 155 states have signed the Rome Statute. Ukraine signed it on January 20, 2000. Only 122 states have ratified the document. The Rome Statute defines the main international crimes: genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. The Crimean Platform was presented to the members of the European Parliament. Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Emina Japarova, informed European Parliament deputies about worsening of the situation in the Crimea occupied by Russia, about the militarization of the peninsula and the supply of nuclear weapons there. In addition, she welcomed the creation of a global sanctions regime for human rights violations and called on the EU to appoint a representative for Crimea. The Ministry of Health of Ukraine recommends avoiding trips to the United Kingdom, where a new strain of coronavirus was identified earlier. This was stated by the Chief Sanitary Doctor of Ukraine, Viktor Lyashko. At the same time, they will not restrict entry from the United Kingdom. However, visitors should have an insurance policy covering treatment for COVID-19 and a negative PCR test. The Ministry of Health also recommends postponing trips to Denmark, the Netherlands, and Australia. There, the cases of infection with the new strain have been fixed as well.
We highly recommend everyone, if possible, to refrain from non-obligatory trips to the United Kingdom, as well as entering Ukraine from this country. Despite the information on mutation of the coronavirus, we also recommend not to travel to any countries in the red zone compared to Ukraine.
The so-called British strain of coronavirus is not registered in Ukraine. This was announced by the acting Director General of the Center for Public Health of Ukraine, Igor Kuzin. He noted that there is no exact data that indicates a more severe course of the disease or increased mortality. Kuzin emphasized that all laboratories in Ukraine are provided with test systems that are capable of detecting different strains of coronavirus.
At present, 12,000 mutations of the coronavirus genome have already been registered, and all of them are identified by test systems that are used in Ukraine. The virus mutates, all these forms are being investigated, and now there are no reports of significant changes in its genome that would have significant clinical or diagnostic value. Ukraine, as a partner of the Global Surveillance Network, provides coronavirus samples from the patients for sequencing. The so-called British strain wasn't registered in Ukraine.
The new tests were developed by Kyiv Institute of Molecular Biology and Genetics. One testing kit is able to diagnose 3 viruses at once: COVID-19 and 2 strains of flu, A and B. Biologists believe these tests will help doctors to indicate patients' disease more accurately and rapidly. A new system was tested using the virus samples from the infected persons. Now, scientists negotiate with the Health Ministry the possibility of widespread use. Besides, the new test could also indicate the new virus strain, they assure, in spite of any mutation. Mutations is a native trait for viruses. That is why we elaborated the capability of a test in order to identify any possible forms of existing viruses. The reviewed combined test, it is firstly much cheaper and accurate on comparison to Western analogues. At the very least, there are no such tests in free access that could identify 3 viruses. More than 4,000 medical workers have contracted coronavirus in Kyiv since the beginning of the pandemic. This was announced by the head of the Kyiv Union of Medical Workers. Serhiy Kubansky noted that among all cases of COVID-19 in this category of people, a quarter has been examined. Only half were infected while performing official duties. The head of the Union of Medical Workers stressed that several families of doctors who died from complications of the coronavirus have already received compensation from the state. The State Service of Ukraine for Food Safety and Consumer Protection in Kyiv can close New Year's locations in the city due to constant violations by visitors of the mask regime and social distancing. Head of the city regulatory body, Oleg Ruban, threatened the organizers of New Year's events with criminal liability for non-compliance with quarantine restrictions. He also noted that the department will monitor Christmas fairs that will be held in different districts of Kyiv on December 26 and 27th. Not only bright and beautiful, but also safe, the quality of artificial Christmas trees and decorations was checked in Kherson shops. How to choose a safe item? Our correspondents know. I like the first one with cones.
Olena chooses an artificial Christmas tree. The woman pays attention to not only how it looks, but also to the material from which the tree is made.
If I like it, I will buy it even for $285. Plus, I check everything, all the information that is necessary for me.
Inspectors of the State Service of Ukrainian Food Safety and Consumer Protection say that artificial trees are of 2 types, for the house and for the street, and this is the only way to use them.
If it is produced for a yard, then the material can include some substances, some toxins, that can spread throughout the house or flat if heated. It can harm one's health.
It is desirable to read the information on a label before buying Christmas tree. You can find out if the wood has been treated with a special refractory solution. If the information is not enough, you need to ask more information.
The manufacturer makes the appropriate conclusion of the state sanitary epidemiological examination for each product.
It is also important to check the safety of lights and toys. Ludmila chooses those that are without small details and have no odor, so that the grandchildren don't have allergies.
Safe means that it makes no stains and doesn't fall apart. You see, kids are always excited by the bright things, and I'm afraid for my grandkids.
And a poor quality garland can cause a short circuit. In such cases, the label and packaging should be studied even more carefully.
One of the main signs that confirm that these products are safe for the consumer is the application of the mark of conformity. It has 3 rays and is put by a manufacturer on the product. That is, this mark confirms that products comply with technical regulations and are safe.
When buying a product, it is necessary to keep the check. If a tree or decorations with illumination have some defects, the Consumer Protection Service will help to return or exchange the goods. Reported by Nick Starkov, Yanina Lebedeva, UATV News.
Checks of the pyrotechnics shops and masterclasses on how to use explosives correctly. On the eve of New Year celebrations, rescuers spoke about the danger of fireworks. According to them, while the demand is growing, the quality of the fireworks remains low. What are the main things to pay attention to and how not to spoil the holiday? Our correspondents know more.
On the eve of the New Year, the local rescue service conducts raids across fireworks stores in the Dnipro city.
This is a regular annual procedure. Here is a warrant for a general check.
Sellers show documents and fireworks.
Here is a sign. It has to be pinned with each product.
First of all, attention is paid to the storage conditions and run-out dates of fireworks and firecrackers. They say that if a firework lays for a long time, it becomes dangerous.
Pay attention to the conformity mark, the integrity of the packaging, so there is no damage. Ask the seller for a certificate or declaration and buy only after it's proven. Learn the instruction before using the fireworks. See it's printed on the trademarks of the product.
Ruslan Karabayev buys fireworks every year. The man says he cannot ignore his children's and grandchildren's wishes, but he chooses only specialized stores. He trusts them more.
You can buy it on a street market and it will not work or will go in a blaze, and that's it. Or it will work well and the money isn't spent in vain.
Very often those ignoring the manuals suffer from injuries. Doctors say another situation is when a person tries to check over whether all the firecrackers have fired.
There is a great risk that during the utilization of an explosive, it may injure the face, eyes and fingers.
After the choice is made, the fireworks setting must be used correctly. Kyiv rescuers have held a masterclass.
After you went out to the street, chose a safe distance, you should place the saluting installation on a flat surface. And it is better to anchor it with stones, so that it didn't move away or fall.
When lighting a firework, hold a lighter on an arm distance only. As early as the fuse is ablazed, it's strongly recommended to run away swiftly, reaching the safe distance. Even apparently harmless firecrackers and ordinary sparklers can easily become a fire origin.
The temperature of these sparklers reaches 1100 degrees Celsius. And even when a small part bounces back a half meter, it loses only 60 degrees of its heat. This is a very high temperature, enough to provoke fire and an emergency situation.
Dnipro rescuers say no violations registered during raids. They express hope that the New Year parties will pass off injuries. As only last year, the hospital trauma units admitted 7 people. Reported by Nick Starkov, Natalia Guzak, Volodymyr Stanhelov, UATV News.
A barber in the 9th generation for already 76 years, the 88-year-old Odessa resident has been working with scissors and still operates with a razor. He is the oldest master in Odessa. Our journalist will tell about his love for the profession and the secrets of his work.
88-year-old Ivan SHTYRIOV started studying the barber craft in childhood, helping his father in the salon. All the men in his family were barbers, and he has already taught his son and grandson.
My son started here, now he works in New York. He left for 3 years, he was invited there for 3 years, but more than 2 decades have already passed.
Ivan SHTYRIOV works with scissors for 76 years already, all the time in one barbershop.
I started working here recently, some 66 years ago.
Some Odessa residents became his permanent clients.
I know Ivan for maybe 65 years. This barbershop opened yet in 1965. And since then I'm the client. He creates such a favorable atmosphere that you go home a completely different person after a haircut.
The haircut and style are chosen by the master himself, and often already during the process.
What is a good haircut? Now everyone's just shaving head, so to say. But the best haircut is a classic one. We used to usually do those nice haircuts. They took time, we worked only with scissors. Now everyone works with hair trimmers. But the last time I used the trimmer was some 10 years ago.
Ivan hasn't lost his straight razor skills despite his age, and only recently he decided to use his colleagues' services.
I've been doing all my haircuts by myself for 40 years. I'm my own barber, so to say. I shave myself with a straight razor, and I work only with straight razor. No one works with them now.
Ivan SHTYRIOV says he's not going to retire yet. He plans to work as long as he has forces and clients. Reported by Nick Starkov, Anastasia Lysova, UATV News.
That was our final story at this hour. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube and Facebook pages.